All right, welcome back to XFR episode 4, I think. Um, well, as you can see, a lot has been going down. I have not been filming because, to be honest, it's been kind of stressful, and I'll explain why in a minute. So, um, as I mentioned in the last video, I had to dig into why there was so many top-end oil leaks on this thing. So, bought a bunch of parts and stuff. Obviously not the stuff I took off, but parts, gasket kits, metal breather, new lifters. I got a cam somewhere in there, shorter cables, just basically everything. I just bought everything. Um, Let me tell you what has been going on. So first off, getting the engine down to this is actually pretty scary easy. Like, it took me maybe an hour to break the engine down to this point. Now, granted, I'm pretty mechanically inclined and I have some tools and stuff. The one monkey wrench in getting the top end off of this bike was with the front motor mount in, there was not enough room in between the frame and the valve, I want to call it a valve cover, but rocker box cover to get the bolt out. And unlike the Softail, the FXR does not have an access hole where you can go through to remove the bolt. So imagine the cylinders and heads around here. I could get the little wrench in there. I bought the little wrench, but couldn't get the bolt out. So to address that, I had to put the bike on the ground, get a jack on the bottom of the case, undo these bolts to take the front mount off, pull the actual rubber isolator off here, which actually I'll probably replace because it looks pretty gross. Then I could drop the motor down. What I did is I just dropped it onto a couple pieces of wood. So it lowered it just enough to get the top end down. So that was problem number one, no big deal. So I start tearing it down, and come to find out, someone had worked on the top end of this bike before, probably to address oil leaks. So if you look at the rocker boxes, you can see that there's some like white rubber seals in there already. So here's what I think happened. Someone worked on this who was not mechanically inclined. We already know that. They over-torqued all of this stuff so bad. Right away, we have leaks right there in the rubber gasket. You could see it got pinched. I mean, when I say it was over-torqued, like, there was no torque wrench touching these things. And this is only supposed to be like 14 pounds or something really low like that. Like, I had to struggle to get these bolts out. That was bad. So then the other problem was the front rocker box, which was the one that was leaking so bad. I put these in order, but I don't remember what my order was. I guess it's this one. This was the front. So they replaced the main gasket that goes underneath the rocker boxes. This top bolt here in the corner was not torqued down at all. So all of them are over torqued. This one was sitting like a quarter of an inch up. It was completely loose. So in other words, any oil that went into the rocker box could just leak directly out past the head onto the engine. So again, just another case of someone doing like the crappiest possible job at something. That was a really big issue. So got those off, realized the issue. Did have original head gaskets, did have original base gaskets. So probably a good thing I did all this repair. Here's the next issue. I pulled off the ignition and the cam cover. Let me show you what I found immediately that told me that something was wrong. So I pulled the cover off the pickup, and I saw this. You see that line carved into the timing pickup right here along the side. That's not normal. Why that was happening was because the cam cup was sitting here and rubbing on this. So I grabbed the timing cup, and I was able to rock this thing back and forth like a quarter of an inch, like way, way, way too much. So right off the bat, something was wrong. So get it completely out. Let me see where my parts are. Sorry. So this is the old cam. I think this is not a factory cam, pretty sure. So I get the cover off, and this is the bushing that's in the cover. And you can see that bushing is completely worn down. So this is on the cam like this, and obviously this was rubbing and wearing down. So um, I don't really know why that happens. My theory is either someone replaced the cam and they didn't set the end play, and when they put the cover on, maybe they changed the gasket and it was too tight, and so it just got pushed into here and wore it all the way out. Or maybe it was too loose, and so this was, you know, like the cam was like bouncing back and forth in this thing, causing it to wear. I don't know. So that was a huge problem. Obviously, I can't use that. So old cam, I don't know if anyone can tell me if this is factory or not. There's no markings on it. There's just the blue dots. So that was an issue. Thankfully, I have a big arbor press that I use. I don't use a shop press, and with a little bit of heat, I was able to push that bushing out. And then I ordered a new one from S&S, which comes pre-drilled for the oil hole, and I pushed that in. Now, these come too big. They're oversized. You have to actually ream them out for the cam. I was really hoping I wouldn't have to do that and that it would just fit. But the new cam, or even the old cam, it doesn't, there's just not enough clearance. It won't even slip in. So I could take it to a shop, but I really like doing stuff on my own, so I ordered a tool. I haven't done it yet. I've ordered this reaming tool. This is adjustable, and as you can see, you can slide. It's like slightly tapered, so you can slide, and eventually it's flat towards the inside here. So you can adjust this, minute adjustments, and I'm going to try to ream this out myself. If I ruin it, oh yeah, it's going to be super good. If I ruin the bushing, you know, that'll delay me a little bit. I'll order another one, pop that one out, and then I'll take it to a shop. But I think I'm going to be able to use this. The key is use oil and just take off tiny, tiny, tiny little bits at a time until eventually it mates up with my cam. I can use this one as a reference, although I have a feeling this one is already worn out, so I'm not going to make it the exact size. I might look it up and see if I can find some sort of spec. I don't know how much clearance that needs. It's not much. I mean, when you put this on the cam, and ooh, I just cut myself on that bushing. Well, now I'm really only have one hand. Here, let me switch it. Moral of the story, careful with sharp edges. This thing's like a razor. The clearance between these is minute, just absolutely minute. There's really no wiggle, so I might look that up. So that problem will soon be solved. Sorry, I'm bleeding all over the place. Let me get a dirty rag to wrap around my finger. So I'm going to ream that out later today and resolve that. So that all went down. Then I started thinking about it, and the pistons and jugs are in good shape. There's a little bit of wear on the thrust side. The front was the worst. Let me see if I can show you. And that scratch was something I put in it. I don't know where it is. Somewhere on here there's a little bit of wear on the piston skirt right there. So they were not bad, but on the thrust side of the piston, it was wearing into the cylinder a little bit. And I had originally thought, well, I'll just keep the pistons inside the jug so that way I don't disturb the piston rings and I can just put them back on. And then I started thinking, you know, if I'm going through all the trouble to pull these out, I might as well hone the jugs and get new piston rings. So I did a light honing on them. Again, they're really not bad, and there's just not enough light to see. There you go. Did a light honing. They're dirty right now because I've had my hands in them. I've painted the jugs, obviously, you can see, because they were chipped up real bad. Haven't sanded the fins on this one yet. But so I figure, okay, well, if I'm going to replace the rings and go through all the trouble of honing and putting new rings on, well, then I might as well replace the pistons and do some high compression pistons. So I bought a set of Keith Black, and I know there's a lot of horror stories with their hyper-eutectic pistons, but these are their forged pistons. So these will give me 9.5 to 1 compression. They come with the rings and everything to put them in, so I've already gone through the process of gapping those accordingly. If you buy these pistons on the internet for the motorcycle, like pretty much anywhere, they're like $280. And I don't know if this is a mistake, but Jegs, which is, an auto parts place, they carry these pistons. This set with the rings was only $180 through Jegs. Like, you can't buy OEM pistons and rings for $180, and I was able to get these really awesome forged pistons. So I jumped on the opportunity to get those. So those will be going in the jugs. The jugs have been honed. And there are some really minor scratches in these from where, the piston slapped along the back, but it's not a big deal. It was already like that, so it's not going to be any worse than it was. It wasn't smoking really bad or anything, so I don't think I have to worry about it. So I'm going to put it together like that with the standard size pistons. Somewhere down the road, if it ends up being a problem, I can get these bored out 5 or 10 over and do a new set of pistons. They're cheap, but I don't think I'll have to do that. So as you can see, I painted these jugs with Rust-Oleum high-temp paint. It's good up to 2,000 degrees. I'm in the process of sanding the fins down. They were really, all the paint was coming off of these. So this doesn't look too bad. I mean, it's chipping a little bit on the edges. The way this paint works is you spray it on and then you have to bake them in the oven. I only baked them up to 400. They want you to do up to 600, but I don't know if that will damage these. So I didn't want to go that high. But they look pretty good. When I get them on the bike, they'll bake a little bit more and everything will be fine. All right, let me tell you the biggest problem that has been causing me so much stress and making me not want to record anything. And that is this. You may recognize this as an inner cam bearing. So, of course, I'm going to replace the inner cam bearing. Now, it already had a Torrington-style inner cam bearing. I don't know if that was OEM on these older ones or if someone had installed this, but it was already a Torrington style. But I have a new one that I want to put in. So I had a while back when I had a twin cam, I purchased a blind bearing puller from Amazon. Just one of these things like that. So you shove that in the bearing and you tighten it down and it opens up, and then you use the hammer slide to pop the bearing out. Well, don't buy one of these from China, from Amazon. Actually, probably don't buy one at all. Just go on eBay and they sell the actual like puller that's made for an Evo, like a generic version for like $40. Buy the tool. That's what I should have done, because as you can see, the bearing busted, and it happened when I was pulling the slide popped out. I'll just try to run you through this. So sitting here, had it in there, and I'm yanking on the hammer slide, and the hammer slide slips out. The bearing puller slips out, and immediately I can see one of these rollers is missing. This is where you can learn from my mistake. So I had a small freak out because I'm like, holy crap, like if those fall in there, I'm gonna have all this trouble. So I ran really quick and I got like a shop magnet thing, a different one I have, it's a little bit bigger than this. And I started going in here, fishing the rollers out, trying to get them out of there as fast as possible, and set them over on the side, just on the ground. So I'm like, okay, cool. Well, could have been a lot worse. But then I started thinking I need to count the rollers, make sure that I got them all out. So I compared the amount of roller needle bearings. Sorry, I'm confusing myself. I counted these, and lo and behold, I was one short. So this is where my repair started becoming extremely depressing and non-enjoyable. And because I know that if one of these did go into the motor, you can't leave it in there. And I tried convincing myself, oh, it'd probably be fine if I leave it in there, how much damage it could do. But all the stuff I read online said it's just basically going to kill your motor. So I spent hours and hours with my other shop magnet, this one right here, this type of thing that most people have, digging down in that hole. And of course, with the pistons off, and maybe I can show you, with the pistons and cylinders off, it's going to be hard to see this, but you can actually see straight down, and yeah, sorry, it's not focused, but you can see down there where that oil is sitting. That's the bottom of the crankcase. Like, if you're going to lose one of those rollers when you're replacing the pistons and jugs, that's the best time to lose it, because you can see straight down into the crankcase. So I figured, okay, well, that roller's got to appear, so I turned the crank and I put the magnet down there. I left it in there. I poured oil down the side of the flywheel. There's a little tiny space right here. And as you can see, like the flywheel butts right up against the case. I mean, there's like no room. I poured oil down there. I blew compressed air down there. I literally stuck a shop vacuum down into the bottom of the crank, hoping that I would pull this roller out. And nothing worked. So there was a time when I thought, well, maybe the roller didn't fall down in there, because it's very possible when I yanked the bearing and the puller came off that the little roller could have shot into the garage. And I mean, I got so much crap in here, as you know. If it did, I would never find it. So I started trying to convince myself that it didn't actually fall in and that I was safe putting it together. But then I did more research and read more, and I just kept freaking myself out and got real depressed. But I have just recovered it. So, a tip if this happens to you, what I've figured out is, so here's the hole where the inner bearing is, right here. And again, it's kind of hard to see because it's so dark, but you can see directly behind the bearing hole, behind the race, that's the flywheel. And the flywheel has kind of like a flat surface, and then it kind of comes out like this, like a shelf. If your roller falls down in there, it cannot, at least in my experience, and this may be different with some engines or maybe different cranks, but the roller cannot drop down past the flywheel into the bottom of the crankcase in order for it to come out to the middle for me to fish it out of the top. As thin as these rollers are, and you can see they're tiny little things, there was no way that that was getting past the flywheel and coming out of the crank through here. Now maybe there's a way you could finagle it out. A lot of people, what they do is they'll like actually fill a crankcase with diesel fuel, move things around, and then they can suck it out or whatever. There's no plug on Evo at all. Like there's no way to get the bonnet end open. So anything has to come out through the top. So what I got was a super heavy duty, this is what's used for like magnet fishing. This is a neodymium magnet, I don't know how you say that, rare earth metal magnet. This is supposedly has a strength of like 400 pounds, and I believe it. It's crazy. Like, it's got stuck on my jack a couple times, and I literally couldn't get it off. So, I got this magnet from Amazon, and basically what I did is I stuck it onto the crankcase, and even though the crankcase is aluminum, it sticks to it because it's actually getting the flywheel. And I started sticking this around, and I ended up sticking it to this side of the crankcase, the right side. And when I moved the crank, I started hearing like grinding sounds. Not grinding, but like something was rubbing. And then every once in a while, I'd move the magnet or take it off, and I would hear tink, tink, tink. So that told me that the roller was, in fact, in there. But just like 15 minutes with this thing, this is literally what I did. I started on the right side, on the side of the crank, and I turned the crank a little bit, and then I moved this over to the bottom, turned the crank a little bit, moved it over here, turned the crank a little bit, moved it here, turned the crank a little bit, and then I put it right in here, like that, turned the crank a little bit, and then pulled it out, and I moved the crank, and I heard nothing. Nothing, which actually freaked me out more, because at least when I heard it clinking around in there, I knew it was in there. So then I got scared. But then I started turning the crank. I'll pull this out so I can show you exactly what happened in case this happens to you. I started turning the crank, and there's a spot here where you can actually see the crank pin sticking out of the flywheel. And you know, because it's like a giant nut on the pin. What I was able to do is right there, you see on the edge of the crank pin, it's machined flat, and then there's like a kind of material like right in there. The roller got stuck right there. I was able to see it visually with my eyes, got it with the magnet, pulled it out. That just happened 20 minutes ago. So as of 20 minutes ago, I'm actually now happy to be working on this and not miserable because I'm scared I ruined my engine. Lesson for everybody: don't use a blind bearing puller. Get the actual tool. I haven't reinstalled the new bearing yet. I'm going to do that. It's in the freezer. So that's kind of where I'm at. Now everything's ready to reinstall. I fitted the Andrews cam in here. I have a red gear. The Andrews cam seems to fit these teeth just fine. I'll just have to set the end plate, and that's going to be crucial so I don't have another issue with the bushing. I also have a metal breather gear that I'm putting in here, and you need to fit that as well. So I got to do all that measurement and fitting of those items. Then once I'm done, I can stick them in, put my bearing in, and start rebuilding this thing. And that's actually going to be the easiest part yet. So, sorry I haven't shown anything up to here. It's been kind of a nightmare. For anyone who's interested, this is the condition of the heads. They're not bad. Looks like it might be running a little lean, like the exhaust valve is a little, is that the exhaust? Yeah, the exhaust valve is a little white, so it's been a little hot. It doesn't surprise me. I think it was running lean before, but not bad. I'll clean those up and they'll look a lot better. So condition otherwise of all this stuff is really good. Everything's going to go back on just fine. I'll have to clean up these bolts. These are the head bolts. So I'm at a point now where I can start reassembling and everything's going to be just hunky-dory. If you didn't think my garage was a mess before, it's really a mess now. So, happy days. So next video will probably be me either starting it or assembling it or wherever I get. Next steps for me: finish getting the paint done on the cylinders, remount my bushing for my cam, and then I can start putting stuff together. So that's where I'm at. It's been quite a journey. I wouldn't say that it's like too difficult. Actually, I would totally, if you're like even mildly mechanically inclined, you could probably do this service. But what I gotta warn you about is with any bike that's this old, especially with someone who was a garage mechanic, not that I'm not, but you know what I mean, you're probably going to run into issues where stuff was done wrong, and it's going to make it even more difficult on you. That's what I've seen so far. It's been non-stop with this build, has been me running into issues, starting with the wiring being chopped up, starting then the rocker box gaskets not being installed correctly, and then the cam bushing being all worn out, probably because it wasn't installed correctly. So again, right with the channel name, FXR, it's been cringy the whole time. So, but I think I'm in a good spot. Looking forward to getting it back together. If you have any comments, questions, please feel free to hit me up in the comments section on YouTube. I try to be active on there. I'm really having a good time. Anytime someone comments and has something to say, I appreciate it. I get a lot of people, I don't say a lot, I've got a few people saying leave it stock. Sorry guys, I'm not leaving it stock. I'm not going to throw out the parts I take off it. I'm not going to throw them out. I'm going to put them in a box. If I ever sell the bike, whoever gets it can have all the OEM parts. I'm not leaving it stock, so sorry. I know that's a shame, and FXRs should be left stock or whatever, but that's not what I'm doing. And I don't think I'm going crazy on it, so yeah. But that's where I'm at. Thank you for tuning in, like as if that even means anything anymore. Thanks for watching. If you could please like, comment, subscribe, share. It's really helpful to be getting feedback on the channel. I appreciate it. Anyway, have a good one, and we'll see you in the next video.